Good morning, everybody. There have been reports of an attempted color revolution in the nation of Serbia on Christmas Day. When I heard this, I thought, my goodness, this is something huge. They're trying to do in Serbia what they did in Ukraine in 2014, where there was the Maidan protests and they overturned a democratically elected government, had new elections afterwards and installed a Western US deep state controlled and pre-selected puppet, Poroshenko, and then afterwards we got Zelensky. He was elected on a platform of peace, but he was a deep state puppet, and he actually then escalated war when there was absolutely no need to, because the West wanted to bring Ukraine into the EU, into NATO, and they put their puppets in and they had a color revolution to start the process off. So I saw this clearly, in videos which were very, poignant of people on Christmas Day gathering, smashing the windows of the parliament in Belgrade, smashing on the doors, trying to rush into the parliament building and take control of this. And the ironic thing is that all the people who blamed Trump for what happened on January the 6th in the USA were seeing the same thing happening in Serbia and were saying, well, these are our guys now. These are good guys because they're against electoral corruption. The people who were like, anytime you suggest that there was election fraud in the USA in 2020, would say, no, you're a conspiracy theorist. That's completely not true. Are now saying about Serbia, well, no, there's election fraud there. So they're flipping the narrative in what's happening in Serbia. So I saw this and I thought, my goodness, what are they trying here? Because Serbia is it's a country that historically has been very, very pro-Russia, but the EU and NATO are trying to bring it into the orbit of the collective West, bring it into EU membership, bring it into NATO membership. Ultimately, that's what they want to do. But looking into it a little bit further, things are not quite so clear-cut as that. So the president of Serbia is Alexander Vučić. He's been the president since 2017. And he is not so 100% pro-Russia as presidents in Serbia have historically been. In fact, he's actually very pro-EU. He's very pro-West, but he's also pro-Russia at the same time. So he's sort of like playing both sides off against each other, trying to maintain good relations with Russia while also building good relations with the EU. So, okay, fine. Serbia is in a difficult geographical position because it's surrounded by EU countries, but then, it's Orthodox and it's got the historic and cultural ties to Russia as well. There was an election in 2020. And his party, he's the president, he's not standing to be the prime minister in the parliament, but his party, which is called the Serbian Progressive Party, didn't win a majority in the 2020 elections. They had to form a coalition with the socialists. They were the largest party, nearly had a majority, but not enough. Then, surprisingly, he called another election in 2022. Before it was necessary. So in Serbia, the president actually can call an election, dissolve the parliament and do that. And again, in 2022, his party, the Serbian Progressive Party, it won 120 seats out of 250, so it didn't have a majority. There's supposed to be a 4-year term, but then he's now called a third election within a 4-year period here at the end of 2023. And his party, the Serbian Progressive Party, has actually won a majority in parliament. So they got 128 seats out of 250. So they've got an absolute majority and they can pretty much now do what they want in parliament. So after this, there were these protests by the opposition party or opposition coalition which calls itself Serbia Against Violence, even though they were actually acting pretty violently after the election and trying to instigate something on Christmas Day, some kind of takeover of the parliamentary building. I don't know how far that would have gone. The thing is, in the election here, they're the second place, and they've only got 25% of the seats, whereas the leading party, Vucic's party, has got over 50%. So the second down the list in the election, the coalition that's second on the list, has no way got any. It doesn't come anywhere near the leading party that got over 50% of the votes and 48% of the votes, but 51% of the seats. So they are trying to instigate some kind of coup, it seems, with 2,000 or so heavies going to the centre of Belgrade and trying to take over the parliament. The thing is, it wasn't really a massive thing. It was, it looked very violent when you got the cameras in the right position. You see people smashing windows, big heavy guys bashing into the doors. It looks, incredibly, like a huge story. But whereas in the Ukraine Maidan coup, there were tens or hundreds of thousands of people out, every night for a very, very long time, a month or two. This was just a couple of thousand people. So the crowd was not as big as you might sort of see it being made out to be on some mainstream media channels. And even, people that did, on our side, if you like, who are suggesting that this is some kind of coup, globalist coup against some conservatives, doesn't really stack up like that, because Vucic, it acts pretty much like a globalist in some issues, in being a Western war hawk and so on, and trying to bring Serbia into the orbit of the collective West. However, the one thing about Serbia that the powers that be in the collective West do not like is that most of Serbia is still very conservative in society and supports traditional family values. And they're not having any of this alphabet, LGBTQIPPA, whatever, all those letters. They're not having any of that nonsense. And actually, it's the only country I've seen that has a family pride day. Actually, people go out, fathers and mothers and children, and march and parade down Belgrade, showing that they're proud of the traditional family and of their Christian heritage. And I think that's absolutely wonderful. Now, obviously, that's going to really wind up and trigger people whose heads are just in the wrong place, who support all of this alphabet nonsense. So they don't want to see, they're like Big Brother here. They Vucic is 3/4 pro-Western, but that's not enough for them. They want to destroy the country by getting rid of the traditional family and opening it up to mass immigration, like they're starting to do in Poland, tragically, at the moment, since their election, where they've just got rid of the traditional party, the PIS. Although they're not, they're pretty globalist themselves. The PIS in Poland completely support all of this, the war and stuff that the West is waging in Ukraine. So, they're not perfect at all. Here in Serbia, you've got this party that's pretty much, pro the powers that be in the West as well. But, it's always disturbing to see people, trying to instigate a coup. And, it's not good against bad here. It's like, someone who's not perfect, and then someone who's even worse trying to instigate a coup against someone who's not, perfect in the first place. So my initial thoughts on this were, oh my goodness, here's another colour revolution. But actually looking into it, I've actually come to the conclusion that, well, it's not really a colour revolution. This guy is not, Vucic and his party are not really conservative, although they are to some extent protecting conservative traditional values and society. They're still very much pro EU, NATO, and all the stuff that goes along with that. So there you go. We'll have to see what happens, and this might just fade away into nothing, because it seems that the police and the government forces just, put down this attempted coup and takeover of the parliament, because there weren't actually a huge amount of people there. But we'll see if the globalist powers that are supporting this other party, it seems, Serbia Against Violence, that's actually willing to use lots of violence, ironically, whether they get more funding and whether they carry it on into something that actually, goes further and further and actually tries to unseat not just the party that won the most recent election, but the president himself and Vučić, whether, he is not good enough for them and they want to actually try and put in their own puppet president who will be even more globalist than the sort of semi-globalist that they've got in Serbia. We shall see what happens. So something to watch as time goes on. Thanks for listening, everybody. I hope you found that interesting.